Gone. Having people disappear by the power of a alien being not of Earth before it was cool. Suck it, Avengers. You don't even let me. You do not even let me get my intro out now. It's going to be my life forever because you're training the little one. Hey everyone, Afrodo Reviews here, helping you decide, is that book worth reading over second breakfast? Or does it deserve the fiery pits of Mount Doom? Let's decide. Gone, written by Michael Grant, is a YA novel. I'm not really sure if it falls into sci-fi or fantasy, personally. You would argue that it might fall more into sci-fi from this book alone, but I know what happens in the later books, so... But it was published on June 24th of 2008. The book doesn't have any awards to its name, at least none that I could find, although it was nominated for a few of them. Perhaps the greatest piece of praise that this book has, however, in terms of an official nature, is Stephen King actually went out of his way to compliment the book and the concept that it presents. I mean, he liked it so much, he stole it for his own book. That's unfair. I haven't read the book yet, but from what I watched of the show, it's very different. But it's the same basic concept. Now, I would like to tell you what prompted Stephen King to do this or where he said it, but the Wikipedia article and the link to where he was supposedly said it led to a Asian site that is very not safe for work. I might have to scrub my computer down after I'm done with this video.
Oh god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Yeah, so fair warning, don't go click that link down in there, the Gone Wikipedia page. Yeah, just here's the report card. And now we move on to where we always start, the cover. Now, there are a couple covers for this book. However, for the sake of this review, I'm going to be using this cover. Not only because this is the cover of the book I have, but because this is also the cover I remember from my childhood, from the big, giant hardback that I read in the this one actually wasn't the school library, it was the city library. But this is the cover that I remember. So this is the one I'm going to review. And truth be told, it's not very great. Now, I've made no secret before what I feel about live action actors on these covers. Ranger's Apprentice did it fine enough, but for the most part, I always find that they're uninteresting. I don't know if it's because it's a lot like when they replace the cover for the book with the movie adaptation or not, but I've never liked them. And this one is a great example of why. For example, everyone in this book is under the age of 15. It's actually a major plot point. So when you got these two people on the front who are supposed to be Sam and Astrid, you have what looks like 17-year-olds. Like even on the back, who I imagine is supposed to be Drake and Diana, the preparatory psychopaths, as I call them. They all look like they're over the ages of 16 and 17. So obviously right there, you're already off to a start. But even look at their expressions. Astrid looks like she's trying to see something in the distance, but the sun is blinding her, and she's never heard of the concept of sunglasses. She's just kind of like, well, something's blowing her hair back. But that same thing isn't affecting Sam, who isn't affected by the light at all, who isn't affected by any of the wind, and it's kind of just staring off into the distance with a sort of, that's cool, expression. And on the back, I mean, they're not even looking where Sam and Astrid are supposed to be looking. They're looking like at you, like, yeah, we already know what that is. You want to fight me? kind of thing. And it's just one of those, nothing about this cover tells you anything about this book. You really would have no idea what this book is about if you took away the synopsis. So yeah, as far as covers go, this isn't very good. Now, future covers are a little better, although I do think they're still a bit bland, not saying much about the book, but they are far better than this one. So, since the cover fails to tell us what the book is about, I guess we have to go on to the synopsis. Now, obviously, for those of you who are longtime viewers of the channel, you know what I'm going to say next. that if you want to see how the book presents itself, you want to see me read directly from the back, I suggest checking out my TBR. It's a good way, again, to see how the book presents itself. And sometimes I even have to comment on the synopsis because, yeah, the synopsis sometimes lies to you. But for the sake of context in this review, I'm going to give a quick rundown of what this book is about right now. For the long and short of it, Gone is a book about what would happen if one day everyone over the age of 14, basically 15 and up, just disappeared. And the idea that basically this takes place in a small town in California known as Perdido Beach, and a 20-mile area that's cut off into what is known as Phase, or the Fallout Alley Youth Zone. When this happens, it just happens suddenly. There's no sign, there's no warning, there's no big giant alien snapping his fingers. Just one day, everyone disappears mid-sentence. But that's not all that's happening. As the kids try to come to terms with a world that is not run by adults and learning that how to run the world, people begin to develop strange powers, with Sam developing powers with light. He meets a young girl who can shoot fire out of her hands. There's another character named Lana who has healing powers. Everyone begins to develop powers. And eventually, they start to notice that the animals are mutating too. It's strange, like a seagull has talons like a hawk. So there's a lot going on here, but most of all, they have to deal with each other and what I call the preparatory psychopaths, which is a group of kids from the nearby Coates Academy, which is a gifted school for troubled youth, coming down and basically committing crimes that some felons would be like, whoa, dude, calm down. Like, seriously, calm down. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what the story is about. Is investigating. There's not much else to it. So I'll move on. For the most part, this book holds up exactly how I figured it would. But I did enjoy it a lot less than I thought. Now, don't get me wrong. The story is well written. The concept is very interesting. And the characters feel real, if not necessarily likable a lot of the time. It honestly does feel like a story that Stephen King would have written, but aimed more at a younger audience. And unfortunately, yeah, I do mean that, Stephen King would have written it in all of its R-rated glory, too. Because this story does not pull punches. I remember complimenting the Arctic Code for that. How just because it was aimed at a younger audience, it doesn't change the rules of reality just to suit a younger audience. And this book is very much that. Just because it's a YA novel, just because all the characters are kids, the world does not stop working the way it would have. You really feel like this is a story about a bunch of kids trying to cope with everyone over the age of 15 suddenly disappearing one day. But reading this book, I couldn't help but acknowledge that time really can change your perspective on something. When I was a kid and I read this was a very interesting, fantastic book. I enjoyed not necessarily imagining myself in the same scenario, but also curious about what the scenario could hold. I was invested in the characters, and I could kind of see myself there in a sense, if that makes sense. However, as an adult reading this book, I'm just like, what? This doesn't make sense. But as a kid, one of the things that I didn't understand is, how could things evolve so fast? I mean, we're kids, yeah, but we're not dumb. We're not going to let things evolve this fast. But as an adult, I'm also like, how do things not go bad faster? Like, it takes 3-4 days before things really hit the fan in terms of this. And the book attributes it a lot to shock, which may be true, but, it's weird. But because of that, it's hard to criticize this book as fairly as I think I could. As it definitely knows its target audience, and if you're in the YA demographic, you'll probably love this book. I'm not gonna deny that. If you're in YA, pick up this book. It's a good story for your demographic. But, so, for the fair warning, the following review is gonna be more I didn't enjoy this, but this is why I didn't enjoy it as much on this reread. For example, one thing that bothered me a lot is Sam, our main character, has what I call the humble hero complex. It's basically the idea that Sam is a hero. He has all the makings of a hero or a leader. He rushes into danger to save people without expecting any reward. He knows what to do, when to do it, and he can take natural command of the situation. However, the author wants to portray him not as someone seeking power, not as someone who wants it, So he constantly pushes off the responsibility, pushes off the hints that he should take power. And while to a certain extent that this can work in the story, one of the big things is in this book that I thought would have worked is Sam refusing to take charge so much that someone like Cain, who is like Sam but evil, came in and was able to seize power very easily because of it. And it could have been like, this is what happens when you just kind of let things play out by themselves when you could help. However, the reason this bothers me is Sam pushes off the power so much, it becomes very irresponsible. Even when he sees things are devolving, even when he sees things are getting worse by the day because of a lack of leadership, that cares, he doesn't care. He does not want to be in power. He doesn't want everyone looking to him. He doesn't want the responsibility of being a leader. And at a certain point, that makes him far more unlikable than I think Michael Grant was going for. I mean, and again, this is one of those, I get it. As a 14-year-old, I can understand why a 14-year-old wouldn't want all this responsibility. I'm also at the point where this is a story, and watching our main character repeatedly refusing the call to action isn't fun after the first couple of times. It comes off as annoying. But even then, even putting Sam aside, there's like, no one takes charge even before these Coates Academy kids show up, and no one even tries to help. And yeah, I get it. Kids can be little monsters. I actually have a set of kids at the apartment complex I live in that if I see like glass or electronics being put out near the trash, I'll make a point to move it where those kids can't get it because they'll spend all afternoon trashing it if they find it. Like, they're destructive little assholes. I don't believe kids are as callous as a lot of people think they are. They aren't. When things are real and they know these things are real, I think kids are a lot smarter, especially when you get to the older they get. Like 14-year-olds, yeah, they're still kids. Like they're babies, basically, to me now. I don't believe that they would completely abandon a daycare to the point that the two 14-year-olds that did take over the daycare to help out the kids have to enlist the local bullies to get people to help them because they're that overtaxed. Because, I mean, like, even then, it's mentioned several times that a lot of these kids have little brothers and sisters in that daycare. Here's another thing. This kind of ties back into why I think why Sam's lack of responsibility gets to me. At several points, he mentions that, he even says out loud to himself that because all the adults are gone, because of all the older kids are gone, there are going to be a bunch of babies or toddlers who can't care for themselves who got left in abandoned buildings without anyone to take care of them, maybe even with stoves on. And he says, someone should really go check on them. But at no point does he or anyone else in this book make it a point to go check on those kids until it's far too late. So after a disheartening scene where we see what happens when what is implied to be a baby got left alone for 6 days, you kind of get to the point where you're like, okay, I really don't believe that no one thought to go check on those kids. And I get it. As a 14-year-old, again, I understand. As a 14-year-old kid, I didn't really think about it that much. But as an adult, I'm like, if Sam thought of it, at least 3 other people thought of it and did nothing. But even beyond that, even beyond what I think I outgrew to enjoy, I will say that there are a couple of other flaws with this book that I notice now that I didn't notice at the time that I will say is much more objective. It's not just because I've gotten older and don't appreciate it as much. For example, this book does way too much in one book, for example. The concept of a bunch of kids, everyone from 15 and up, being disappeared and then being trapped in about a 20-yard circumference of a massive unbreakable dome, by itself is a premise worth reading. Throw in some superpowers? Yeah, okay, that makes it even better. Animals start mutating all of a sudden. I'm like, okay, you're pushing a little much. Everyone who has any sort of relevance to keeping the town running gets entire POV chapters. Okay, now we're getting a little confusing. And don't even get me started on the Gaia phage stuff that starts cropping up later. Again, I've read the rest of the book, so it gets even weirder. It's not as prevalent in this book, but yeah, this book just does way too much. Like, I feel like you could have cut off a couple of these plot lines, a couple of these POVs, and even just relegated to this character is doing this, but they're overtaxed. Or like have someone walk in and show how overtaxed they are. It's just one of those things where, again, too much too soon. And again, as I mentioned before, it's really hard to like a lot of the characters in this. Sam, again, with his humble hero complex. His best friend Quinn is... I don't know if the author wants me to like him or not, because he is a racist prick. Like, I'm not even kidding. I think as a kid he bothered me too, but as a kid I didn't really realize how awful this guy was. As much, at least. No, he's a racist prick. Like, the first thing he does when meeting a Hispanic character is start making jokes about how that Hispanic character's family jumped the border. And it's just like, no, dude, like, I did not like Quinn at all in this story. And I really wanted him to get a comeuppance that he never got. Astrid's hard to like, not necessarily because she does anything big, but just because I don't feel like there's a lot to like yet. Obviously you don't like any of the Coates Academy kids. You're not supposed to like them. I mean, I'm guessing Kane has the Loki treatment where he's hot and evil, therefore I can change him. Or he's, you know what I mean, Draco in leather pants, basically. So yeah, there are a lot of people in here that you probably won't like most of them. And that can definitely bring down the reading experience. I would say the few characters I liked are Adelio, I think that's how you say his name. Mary, who takes care of the kids. And Lana. But even then, Lana kind of strains on me a little bit near the end. But yeah, like, okay, and there's Orc, who near the end of the book is becoming more of a hero and showing that he has a guilt complex. But by the time you get there, he's done so much wrong that you just really don't want to see his redemption anymore. Well, I mean, like, literally one of the first things he does in this book is mock a little girl who's crying out for her mom while that little girl is in the middle of a burning building. So all in all, if you had to ask me, I would have given this book a 7 out of 10. If you asked me when I was younger, I would have given it an 8 out of 10. And if you want my honest opinion, I probably would give this book, personally, a 6 out of 10. However, acknowledging that this book is very much for its target audience, but not from very many other people, I decided to just split the difference and make it a 7 out of 10 instead. Because, again, this is a perfect example of a book that is perfect for its target audience, but once you get outside that target audience, it doesn't get worse, but you just don't enjoy it as much. It wasn't like Daniel X, where I looked back on it and thought, wow, why did I ever see in this book? I perfectly understand why I liked it, why other people would like it, and I perfectly understand that it's not aimed at me. Again, it's just one of those books I outgrew. So the question of whether or not it deserves Mount Doom is obviously no. Because I can recommend this book to the YA crowd. I can recommend it to people. I can't say it is a good book with a fantastic concept. I just don't think you should read it past a certain age. However, reading this book has made me curious about Stephen King's interpretation on the concept with Under the Dome. I did watch the television series, and I did like it to a degree, but I have heard the book is far different, especially since one of the main characters in the television series, like, dies on chapter 1 in the book. Yeah, honestly, I'm very interested in seeing how this book influenced Stephen King writing, but I'm not necessarily sure this book itself, for me, is worth much of a reread another time, I guess is a way of saying it. But with that being said, just remember, with every book comes an adventure, and every adventure is worth having, even the bad ones.